play?
Yeah.
Maureen told me she had an introduction for this episode. I didn't say what is it because she told me that she was just going to go for it. But then she told me what it was. She said, you could start talking and then I'll chime in when I want to. And this was completely serious.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I have an idea for an introduction. I got like this really like good moment of inspiration earlier today, and I had all these ideas, and I'm like really excited about giving this introduction.
And?
That was it.
Oh.
So let's get to it.
That works.
We're talking about inspiration today, in case you haven't guessed. Just different sources of inspiration, how inspiration affects writing, influences, and all that kind of stuff.
I think it's very fitting for us to talk about because we are inspirations to people. Like, oh yeah, I don't want to be like those guys.
Yeah, we are the prime example of what not to be.
I want to work in this town again.
Yeah.
Better stay away from them.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, what was the saying that sometimes your existence is just to serve as a warning of what not to do?
Yeah.
That's us.
I think that is smart. Stephen King in his book On Writing, actually, which is interesting because that might be his most like across the board loved book. It's his nonfiction book about writing. But he says in it that it's healthy to read a bad book every now and then, take inspiration from it, and learn from its mistakes. And I think that is one of the best ways to view art. And not in a way where you're better than them, but in a way where everything that you consume, you take in and you digest properly so you can learn every piece of art is a growing experience. Which means that everything you used to enjoy has now become homework. That's the bad thing. You can't watch a movie without having a 3-hour analytic conversation with yourself about it.
Yeah, that's true. I think definitely becoming a writer or being a writer and stuff has kind of ruined the reading and movie going experience for me permanently. So whenever
Really?
I mean, it just seems that way because I just keep looking at all the details and all this. I just get so caught up on it. I'm like, oh, this really worked well, or this did. And sometimes I'm like, I just want to enjoy the movie. Like someone, once told me that, like, I don't want to say which movie, but they were like, oh, this was so great. I'm like, really? It was like Suicide Squad. Yeah, okay, I'll say it anyway. But like someone told me that they thought Suicide Squad was a great movie, and I'm like,
I'm right here, Maureen.
But so they told me that they thought it was great, and I'm like, nah, okay. And it was a really tough conversation to have. I'm like choking just thinking about it.
It was that bad. We'll end it there before you start crying.
Okay.
That's interesting because to me it's the exact opposite. I like everything so much more. To me it's like, so if you put on jazz for the average listener, like someone like myself, they might enjoy it or appreciate it. But if you put it on for somebody who understands music theory, they'll really take a lot out of it and each instrumentation, what each person's doing. And so it's a more rich experience for them. Or like drinking wine. If you gave me 3 different wines, I'd be like, I don't know, grape, white, like I wouldn't know. It'd just be some drink. But if you gave it to like, what a wine critic or they're called, then they could tell you like, oh yes, a hint of this and some, it's got like a touch of cardboard and just a lick of whipped cream or whatever. Like that movie Sideways is the obvious example. But so for me, it's the opposite. And I even get excited when I'm watching this really bad sometimes because I'm like, I'm going to talk about this for years. Even though I don't enjoy watching it, I'm going to get years of mileage out of complaining about this and just overthinking it. Okay. So I've got some questions for you.
All right, what do you got?
You got any questions for me?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I guess my first one would be more towards like more about influences. Like I don't want to be that general and say what are your influences, but I do want to ask, I guess, what level of involvement do you think that your influence should have on your work and the story that you have to tell?
I'm glad that you asked that question because that's pretty much what I plan on saying regardless of what you said.
Cool.
Not at this point, but at some point in the video, I wanted to talk about this. And I'm going to use an anecdote because one of my biggest inspirations this time of year is fall, like I talk about in the things I like that I botched with my cat on my chest. And that really just, I don't know what it is, just, it's not, I like horror movies, I like candy and apple cider and all that. But something about the first day of fall, when you step outside and you smell like that dead leaf smell, is my favorite thing. And what gets me is, I try not to be inspired by books when I'm writing books. I try not to be inspired by movies if I'm writing a script. I don't even usually read if I'm writing a book, and I don't usually watch movies if I'm writing a script that often, because I almost try to avoid being influenced by them. I'm kind of put off by it, and I'm also just so in myself for that medium that I don't really want to let other influences in, if that makes sense.
No.
Like, I'm so honed in on, I don't want to say my vision. I don't think I have a vision in that way necessarily, but I just don't have any interest. Like, that's all my capacity for movie is in that script, or all my capacity for books is in mine. But what I try to go for is almost an impressionist, like an abstract emotion, where I try to latch onto that. Like, what emotion this scene made me feel in this movie, I want to write into this book. Or what emotion this song makes me feel, I want this movie to have through characters and dialogue and cinematography rather than instrumentation. But really, I try to take more inspiration from life, and what got me, there's a funny story about this where I'll tell a really bad story. I'm kind of the bad guy, but I kind of hold true to what I say. When I was in art class, I don't want to say too much about the teacher or anything, 'cause he's a nice guy, and his son's a really nice dude who I went to college with as well, but there was all these girls, teenage girls, it was always girls, just, that was the demographic. There weren't dudes in this class. And they would just draw, like, here's Bob Marley, here's a pot leaf, maybe like photorealistic, maybe it'd have some cliche quote on it, and it was just the Fox Racing logo. It was just sickening to me. I was like, this is the most intellectually devoid, unartistic, uncreative crap, and they're talented, and, it looks good, it looks like what it's supposed to look like, but there's nothing to it creatively, and I never understood that. And my stepsister was one of these people. And I don't really talk to her anymore, so I can make fun of her. Make fun of her worse if I did talk to her. But the day before she gave birth, the last conversation I had with her was, I was complaining about them, that kind of thing, in our art classes. And I was like, I don't really get it. What do they get out of it? You're not doing anything creative. It's not art. And she got really offended. And I was kind of saying to provoke her, to be honest. And she's like, so you're saying what I do isn't art? And I was like, no, it's not. And we got into a fight. And the next day she's in the hospital in labor.
No.
But what hit me the older I got was writing a book's really the same way for me, or filming a movie scene where you are trying to make something as lifelike as possible. Even if it's not photorealism, you're trying to give it humanity. You're trying to invoke some sense of reality into something, even if it is fantastical or absurd. You still need that leverage in reality. It's imitation. And I don't like, I just got into this with a coworker the other day. Good artists are, what is it? Good artists borrow, great artists steal. I hate that quote.
Yeah.
That's such a shitty quote.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to swear in these, but that is what it is. It's a shitty quote. And I think it's just justifying plagiarism. And I was, on that note, this is the other talking point of the episode, sorry to rant. I watched one of my favorite movies, one of my biggest influences yesterday, Phantasm, with my roommates. I showed it to them for the first time. And there's a scene that's very influenced by Dune, where there's a black box, the main character, Mike, he puts his hand in it and he can't get it out until he lets go of the fear, and it's hurting his hand. And I've never read Dune, I've never seen the movie that currently exists. Obviously I haven't seen the one that doesn't yet exist. And, to my understanding, it's straight from Dune. And there's what are they called, Jawas from Star Wars, the little hooded midgets? Yeah, they're in there. And this, I believe, came out the same summer as Star Wars. And, it seems like coincidence. But the thing is, the movie, it's still completely its own thing. I never once see the tall man's little henchmen, the little hooded dwarves, and think, oh yeah, that's just the Star Wars things. They look similar aesthetically, but they're used so differently, and the mood is so radically different that I'm never once like, oh, I'm just watching Dune, or I'm just watching Star Wars. It's always Phantasm. It's always Don Coscarelli. Even when you get to that point where it's literally something from something else.
So then, what would you say the key difference is between paying homage to something and just plagiarizing?
I think there is a lot of it in intent. I think, I'll put it this way. So let's say that you were in a band and you're doing a guitar riff. Like, wow, this is awesome. And then you show it to somebody and they're like, dude, that's Smoke on the Water or whatever. You can do that and not realize it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, one I always think of is what's it? It's the title track from the concert movie Stop Making Sense. I think it's called My Girlfriend. My Girlfriend's Better Than That by Talking Heads. And that song is basically the same exact song as DJ by David Bowie. I mean, like, play the instrumentation, the chorus, I have a girlfriend, she's better than that, and I am the DJ, I am what I play. Both, Brian Eno worked on both projects. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which one is which?
Yeah.
Who made the cover? David Bowie or Iggy Pop for China Girl? Who owns the song? Which leads me to my other talking point.
I think it also. Sorry.
I'm kidding. You can talk.
Okay. Well, I think the fine line between plagiarism and paying homage is, I guess, a level of, yes, intention, like you said, but also appreciation. When you're paying homage, you're like, okay, with the whole Dune Phantasm thing, you're like, okay, I really appreciate this element, and I want to honor that by, how do I say this?
Evoking
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, to sort of emulate that, or emulate this feeling, or sort of reference this moment, or anything like that. And I know a lot of, like, TV shows and a lot of movies and stuff that do that as well, but that's just what
I kind of biting my tongue, so I have a lot of thoughts on plagiarism and like
Yeah.
hot topic movies
Yeah.
that just disgust me, and I'll freak out, and then people get mad at me because I don't
Like-
because I don't like The Guest.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Have you seen that one? I'll bitch about plagiarism for a bit.
Okay.
So basically what it is, and it starts out as a clever movie, and it gets stupider and stupider as it goes on. And so it's a guy that looks like, he's a good actor, but he looks like Ryan Gosling. He doesn't usually. He's made to look like Ryan Gosling in the movie. And he basically just acts like the driver from Drive. And they play the synthwave kind of soundtrack in it. And it starts as kind of a parody of it. But after a certain point, I'm like, is this a commentary on these movies? Or do you just think it's badass, so you think that you can make that movie?
Yeah.
Or even, there's a scene in the movie It Follows. So I'm just digging a bigger and bigger hole with myself here. I know.
No,
I'll probably get a message from like one or two people who see this, like, I can't believe you'd say that. But the movie It Follows, there's a scene where she looks, main girl, who's the main girl from The Guest, actually, it's the same actress. She looks out the window and she sees somebody in the yard at her campus, and then she looks back out and it's gone. And this is a loose one. I won't even lie. I'm even doubting it a little bit in my head, but I'm like, what's the difference between this and the scene in Halloween where Laurie Strode looks out the window, sees Michael Myers, then she looks back out the window and he's gone?
Yeah.
It's the same scene. Did Halloween do it first? I don't know. So maybe it's a longer lineage of this scene.
I mean, I'll even say, just to butt in for a second, like, even Violet and Daisy, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's definitely like an
No.
off-the-wall, obscure movie that kind of plays around with the structure and the layout of, like, the typical Tarantino movie. And it's like, how much of that is, like, obviously it's, I don't want to say it's not plagiarism, because I know they're consciously doing it, but they're not trying to take credit for it either, trying to do anything new, but how much of that is paying homage, how much of it is just copycatting, and because I don't really think it contributed, like, anything new to, like, that kind of structure, or did anything differently than it was. I'm like, okay, it's basically a Tarantino movie just done by a different director and featuring different actors, is kind of how it came off to me. But
Well, one thing for me is, I don't know if this makes sense. Like, look at George Lucas. I mean, did he plagiarize? Was it Forbidden Kingdom or Hidden Fortress? I think it's called Hidden Fortress. It's
Fortress.
it's the Kurosawa film. It's the same structure as that movie. The story is the same. Did he plagiarize it, or did he take homage? And I think he took homage. And the reason the dividing line for me, and this goes into really just kind of judging the artist as a person, to be honest. And I hate to put it this way, but I do think it's personal bias, and it definitely is for me when I call plagiarism versus when I give somebody like the pass. But with that said, I think it's integrity, and I think it's like honesty, like doing it in your voice, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you know, like Green Day, they plagiarize like every song they wrote, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And I really get irritated about that. And then I think of like Bob Dylan. He plagiarized basically his whole. He didn't plagiarize just like music. He plagiarized his autobiography. Yeah, it's full of phrases from other literary works, like classic books. And he's like, wow, Bob Dylan's really eloquent. And you find out like all the best stuff was
It's from
stolen.
someone else,
And what's
yeah.
brilliant about that, though, and what I adore about it, made me love the book more, his plagiarism, because he starts the book where he's in an interview with his record label, and he gives his personal history because they need an about me for the write-ups and stuff, where he says, yeah, I was a trucker, I did all this stuff, and then he says, that was all a lie. And then the rest of the book is him doing that to you, the audience.
Oh my gosh.
He literally says at the beginning of the book, yeah, I lied about myself for my bio. And then his autobiography is the same thing.
Isn't that what we did?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't mention our criminal history or anything
No,
in
none
our
of
stuff.
that.
That's why it's all like goofy stuff, because if you actually looked into our past, it'd be horrifying.
Oh yeah. My soul is just dark and terrifying. Anyway, moving on. So when it...
I was gonna say, sorry, I'm intently watching this light. It feels like I'm about to start a race here.
Oh man, you're gonna like drag race with a Honda next to you.
I might have to.
Yeah.
But anyhow, what you're saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So when it comes to like, I guess, inspiration, and this is kind of like what we alluded or talked a little about in our last video, but I do want to touch on like the writer's block aspect of it for a second.
No, we're not doing that.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Okay. But my question is, do you rely, I guess, on inspiration to keep you going? Like, is that like a lack of inspiration, like a good excuse for having writer's block? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as somebody who's never experienced writer's block, I can't say. I don't have writer's block. I have performance anxiety, which I don't know if that's the same thing. I don't relate to what I've heard writer's block is. I have too many ideas to the point where it overwhelms me, and I don't know what to do. You know, I'm like a celebrity with like women throwing themselves at like a Tom Cruise or something, and he doesn't know which one to settle down with. That's me with ideas for books. It's all the time, no shortage ever. But inspiration for me is more like willpower to get over the anxiety to do it, which maybe that is writer's block. I
like,
don't know.
Or kind of like being, you know, in the mood to like work on something, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess.
Oh, sorry.
No, what are you saying?
Well, I remember, this is a weird one. This is a weird thing to draw from, but I remember that Marilyn Manson, his former bassist, Geordie White, whose stage name was Twiggy Ramirez, he said that a lot of guitarists are said to like play with their heart, and he said Twiggy plays with his dick. And that's kind of how I feel about writing in a way, not like in a phallic sense, which, yeah, the pencil, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not getting there. But my point is, like, I get to a point where my ideas of what I want it to be, all my preconceived notions, don't matter. The only thing that matters is me and what I'm writing in this moment. And you almost just have to go at it in the same way that, I don't know, I don't want to be perverse, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do.
Like,
Yeah, no.
it's not a porno. It's true copulation between you and the idea, so to speak. You're procreating with the page to create this work. And the big thing for me, and I've been thinking this a lot lately, my big inspirations, you know, I think about Kanye West all the time, and like particularly the 808s and Heartbreaks era into My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, where I believe he's engaged. He had a very long-term relationship that ended. His mother died in plastic surgery, which he had paid for, and I personally believe this is me. I'll say it's off the record, but I'm talking about my favorite living artist. So, actually, my favorite living and dead artist at this point. I think he has a lot of guilt and felt as though he contributed to his mother's death, and that weight down upon his shoulders. Sorry. And he put together his best album of his career after. I think a lot about Zack Snyder, who was, whether you like them or not, he's making these DC movies, and he put years and years into them. And then halfway through the one where it all supposed to come together, after fighting with the studio, fans, critics, multiple rewrites, recasting, all that stuff, he's filming Justice League. He returns to the rough cut, and then his daughter commits suicide. And then the studio takes this movie, and they give it to Joss Whedon, who re-edits it to make it a Joss Whedon movie rather than Zack Snyder's vision. And you can like Joss Whedon more than Zack Snyder. You could like the movie better than if Zack got his way. That's your taste for it. But in the narrative of his life, to reach that low, and he's already filming another huge like zombie movie for Netflix. and he's got charity work and all that. And I think, you know, if these guys can go through that and continue their careers, like, I had a bad day at work. I experienced like a pinprick compared to getting hit by a semi.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things. So I try to draw inspiration from that, if that makes sense.
I get that. And personally, I don't really see like lack of inspiration or lack of any of that kind of stuff as a good excuse. I guess I don't want to say it like as an excuse, but more of like as a form of writer's block. I mean, for me at least, like, I've alluded to this before, but I've had professors and things like that say just write every day for like 10 minutes, even if you're just writing like I have nothing to write about, which I am like always on the fence about, but I can't honestly say that...
Are we on Toddy Drive?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that moment will pass. Does that say Toddy Drive?
This is your street.
I can't tell if it's Teddy or Toddy. It's funny though.
Oh, I can't see that far.
Yeah, I can't. I'm incredibly drunk right now. I can just see
no, anyway.
the cops show up at my house, like, so a lot of people from the Pittsburgh literary community said you were drinking and driving and you were Sig Heiling or something like that.
Oh my gosh, please don't.
Anyhow.
But
the joke is that they're lying. You have to clarify that shit anymore.
oh, that's unfortunate. Anyway.
It's unfortunate you're not actually Sig Heiling drunk.
No.
That would have been really cool, but I guess you're not that cool.
No, oh gosh. Alright, no. I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah, just carry on before I interrupt you.
I don't remember what I was saying. I guess relying on inspiration to keep you going. I think there's plenty of other things to, like, just falling in love with that idea. Like, not being like, okay, I'm gonna wait till I'm in the mood to write, till I have something to say, and I'm not doing anything until then. And I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, I know a lot of people who are, like, for the longest time I used to be that way, especially that's one of the reasons why it took me 7 years to, like, finally get this book that I've been writing, like, close to being done, as I was just waiting for, okay, the moment when I have that, like, divine inspiration, when I have that moment, I'm ready to write, I have an idea, I have a direction on where I want the story to go, and
I've learned that. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
Sorry, no.
I've had that in life a lot, and I had to, like, recognize that, where, you know, in not my last relationship anymore, but my longest relationship, you know, I was always waiting for, like, the right moments to do things, and it never came. So just waiting and plans and boy, down, like, long-term plans and stuff, like, oh, when do you propose? When do you do this? And those moments never came. There was never a perfect moment. And, like, after that, I just kind of realized you just have to make the moment perfect. You don't get to wait for it, because life's not going to stop for you. So you have to make the most of what you got in every single moment. And that's kind of how I feel about writing and the opportunity to write.
Yeah.
Even if, like, I do a lot of my writing on my cell phone, like, on the bus stop, I'm just going at it with my finger, and I couldn't continue. That wasn't intentional. That's why it was funny to me. Because otherwise it would have just been stupid. But for real, like, I'll, like, type out, like, a paragraph or two, and then I'll, like, go home, and I'll be like, oh, I was thinking about this all day. And then I'll just, like, hash it out on my laptop as soon as I get the chance. And I think, for me, I believe inspiration comes from within. And for me, my biggest inspirations aren't, you know, this movie or this song or whatever. Like, they influence me, and they make me want to create art that good because I enjoy it so much. But I'm not like, oh, I want to write something that's like, I want to write, you know, Runaway, the book. I want to write A Nightmare on Elm Street, the song, or whatever. For me, it's much more so the inspiration of, I don't know, maybe it doesn't make sense, but like my mom or my father or my brother, my sister, my nephew, like being my absolute best so I could be the best family member for them, or the people in my life influence me and inspire me more so than any art, because I know that they want me to do my best and be my best, and I know that that's the person I want to be, is someone who writes books. And I don't know if that makes sense, or it's too abstract, or too disconnected from actual influence. And I don't write about my family. I don't think that would be fair to them. And I'm not saying that I do in any capacity. I'm saying conscious capacity, with that said, just wanting to be the best person I can be and reach my full potential as a person is usually what keeps me going with it. And I also think in terms of like Rocky movies is my big influence, like the philosophy behind it. I'm always thinking about Rocky Balboa, and I always think about when I like, if I could either write another 5 pages or just go to bed and be content, I think, do you get into Valhalla by only writing 5 pages tonight? Do true champions, like Coach Taylor, I give myself, like, from Friday Night Lights for the audience, I give myself, like, Kyle Chandler's voice, Coach Taylor speeches, but I replace football or whatever it is, the game, with writing almost every time. I'm like, I want to go to bed, and I'm like, there's one of my favorite quotes he ever gave. He says, champions give 100%, champions don't quit. And I always ask myself, if I'm going to like go to bed and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know champions gave 20%. I didn't know champions only worked when it was convenient. And I bully myself.
Oh my gosh. That show is its own religion. But as far as like where source of ideas and stuff come from, I guess for me, I think back to that Flannery O'Connor quote that kind of goes like, if you survive your childhood, you have enough writing material to last your entire life. And I see that. And for me, I know you say you don't write as much about like, your family or anything like that, but I do in a way. I do write about like my life, write about my experiences and like things that have happened, or things that I either dream about or things I remember, or things I wish I could remember. And I just sort of, like draw inspiration from that. And it's not that I'm writing the actual events like down like word for word as sequential as they happen. It's more of like, okay, here's the kind of person I was during this period of time in my life, and now I want to write a book or write a story from the perspective of someone who was going through that, or the perspective of who I was at that time, and like this self-growth and like going back knowing what I know now, and I guess trying to make sense of that experience.
It's not directly, I'm sorry. What? It's not directly you, but it's a part of you.
Yeah.
That you're transfiguring, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I definitely get that. And I think that's true for almost any art, because you can't entirely remove yourself from it as much as we almost want to. Like, your child's always going to have your DNA in it.
Yeah.
There's always going to be features that look like yours. And that's what's very difficult for me. And that's the big reason I wait on ideas for years, so that, like, if I am in a certain mental place when I come up with it, I'll have, like, 5 or 6 years to meditate on it and be a little more objective with the story in terms of, okay, is this just what I felt, or is this what's right for the character and right for the story?
Yeah.
And a lot changes that way. A big thing... you can go, I'm sorry.
Okay, alright. I guess, talking about, like, the story I've been writing now, like, if I didn't know, or if I, knowing what I know now, like, several years ago, I definitely would have gotten the book done a lot sooner. And I definitely would have, I guess, growing as a writer, growing as an artist, growing as, just even on an individual level, and just having, like, the experiences that I would say, like, write about in the book, because, again, I'm not really writing, like, word for word, line for line, like, the things that have happened to me. Like, it definitely would have taken on a lot different of a form, and I know in some ways I'm kind of like, well, I wish I would have gotten this done sooner, and I beat myself up about it every day. I'm like, but at the same time, without those experiences, without that influence, and without those, like, emotions and feelings, like, I don't think, personally, this would have been as good of a project as I've set it out to be.
That's something that's always very tough, is when you know you have to take a step back. And I always say, I get why some authors like write every day or as much as you can, but I think it's easier too when you have 8 to 10 free hours a day to write that people who work jobs don't. And I'm not going through the toll booth, I'm just turning around. I figured you knew, but I wanted to actually let you know as well.
We're going on the turnpike.
Yeah, we're going on a road trip. This is going to be a very long episode.
Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing.
But no, I think it's good to take mental health days, and I think writers need that more than a lot of people, because you have to pour so much emotion into it that you don't have to put in to being a cashier necessarily. Now, do I think being a cashier is a harder job and more tolling in many ways than writing? Yes, I'm not talking that down. Is it really?
Yeah. We are in one way right now.
Well, we're going to get out of it very soon.
Okay. Cool. Anyway.
Yeah, Yeah, just keep this going.
Okay. So, I guess next I would ask, like, how you feel your creative brain, like, that doesn't have to do anything with, say, writing or anything like that. Like, what keeps, I guess, your creative self going?
I think it's just like a fish with gills or something, where like you just got to keep swimming, because if you don't, you just drown. I struggle a lot. Do I need to write, or do I want to, or what's the deal here? You know. And at the end of the day, I don't know. It's just what I do, and I don't know. It's almost like oversimplifying makes it sound more pretentious, but I've just learned not to question it. It's just something that I do enjoy, and it can be therapeutic for me in certain ways, but. You know, there's really nothing that keeps me going. Like, I've had books I released that nobody read. I've had books I've released that really did not meet my expectations in retrospect. Or, you know, I don't make much money off my books, and I don't do it for any of those reasons. I don't really get praise in the way that some might. And I like that. I mean, I don't love it. It'd be nice in a lot of ways, yes.
Yeah.
But I think about all the time, and I think about material gains versus doing, so to speak, the right thing. And I'm not saying morally that it's the right thing that I write books, but it's right for me. And I guess that's why I do it. What about you?
Well, you mean just, I guess, how I keep writing, or what fuels my creative brain? I guess, honestly, just being around people who are also creative, being around, like, talking to those people, like, doing the interviews and stuff, like, and just talking to writers and doing some of the projects that we've worked on and doing the articles is definitely, like, for the longest time I thought, you know, this whole idea of just being a writer was just this abstract concept that only, like, the Stephen Kings and the J.K. Rowlings of the world could achieve. And then, you know, you start meeting people, like, honestly, all the people that we've met, and they're, like, you know, small-time authors. They're like, okay, but I work full-time, I have a family, but I still write on the side. And you're like, okay, this idea of just being author is so much more approachable, so much more doable, and that in that way is inspiring in its own right, and just has really helped me, like, get back into the game, because again, I took, like, a hiatus for a long time for, like, a number of reasons. But I mean, doing a lot of, like, reading, like, read everything, read the good stuff, read the bad stuff, like, develop an opinion, develop taste, and, like, filling yourself with stories kind of helps you, or at least for me, it kind of helps me come up with my own stories, and just not like ripping off anything or anything like that, but just saying, okay, here's an emotion that I read in this book, or here's a concept, or here's an idea that I have come across that I'm, like, just obsessed with, and I really want to do something to, I guess, replicate that, pay homage to that, or anything, or plagiarize that. Just kidding. So I guess that kind of keeps me going.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to sound horrible, especially for a guy who's doing a publishing house. Other creative people, like, being around them, I don't want to say it doesn't inspire me, but it typically doesn't. Because I just see them as people.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, hey, there's Doug. You know?
Yeah.
It's not, there's Doug the artist. And I get it when you talk about them. It can, for sure. When you see somebody read or something like that, which I just don't have much freedom to do with my schedule lately for the last, I don't know how many months. But there is certain things, you know, when I was in Renaissance Men, there was a lot, for sure, because there was like 3 or 4 of us all just bouncing ideas off each other all the time, joking around all the time, pushing each other creatively all the time, so that was there. For me anymore, I just think about the people who have done the things I want to, and going back to Phantasm, you know, that was made by Don Coscarelli over, I believe, 3 summers, and cast and crew basically just his local friends, or a little crew he assembled. The film was financed on his parents' credit card, and, you know, people are still talking about it today. It's still relevant today. I mean, it is kind of, even for the horror community, it's still like a cult classic compared to a classic. With that said, I mean, look at the new Star Wars Force Awakens. Captain Phasma was named after because she looked like one of the Sentinel spheres from Phantasm. J.J. Abrams produced the 4K, I believe it's 4K, or at least the Blu-ray re-release, remaster of the original Phantasm movie. It's just fascinating because they added in a CG Sentinel sphere, which brings it full circle with the Star Wars parallels, because they literally have a remaster of CGI. done by the guy who did the Star Wars reboot, which is a funny thing. But I think about that and him making that movie and getting it all together and how much I love it, how much it just like, how emotional it gets me, how much I love it, how much fun I have watching it. I'll never forget the first time watching it with my brother. And stuff like that really gets me, my relationship with art rather than the art itself sometimes, and the people who made it and their life stories. And I don't have much more to say in this episode, do you?
No.
I have one last anecdote to bring something full circle.
All right.
Because I was talking about Green Day earlier. I have my obligatory. I have to talk about Clive Barker and David Bowie every episode, and I have to say something mean about a popular band. And I talk about them plagiarizing stuff. My favorite, actually, is they plagiarize Minor Threat. I forget the name of the song now, but it's written from the perspective of a band that like is taking your band's fans and they're in it for the money. And then the end of it is this guitar riff, which is a guitar riff that Green Day stole, and the whole song is about plagiarism. Those people who steal other people's stuff, and they straight up steal a riff from it. And that's not my story. My story is that backstage, after an LCD Sound System show, David Bowie showed up, and Clive Barker was there. No, he wasn't, but David Bowie showed up, and James Murphy was kind of shocked that Bowie was happy to see him, because he's like, I'm sorry I stole so much from you. And David Bowie said, you can't steal from a thief. So make of that what you will.
Yeah.
You know, after me talking about my least favorite band and how they steal, I'm talking about my favorite artist and how he stole. So that's all I got.
Yeah, me too. I'm slowly running out of steam, and I'm good to go.
Running out of light. It's starting to rain. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Please comment. More importantly, make some fucking videos. Send us stuff. We don't want to talk. We don't like ourselves. We don't like each other. We don't want to do this.
We don't want to be in this car right now.
You could do a call-in and we'll film an episode with you over speakerphone. Do a Things I Like. Contribute. Write articles on our site. We're lazy. We have our own shit we want to work on. We want to promote other people. We want other voices.
Yeah.
That's all.